Om Shruti-Smriti-Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad-Padam Shankaram Loka-Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya-Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti-Bheda-Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta-Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavaर्थाय Shuddha-Jnanaika-Murtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Indriyebhya parahyarthaha
Indriyebhyah para
Indriya parayarthaha
arthebhyascha param manaha
arthebhyasya param manaha
manasastu para buddhihi
manasastu para
Sastu para
buddhihi
buddhihi
buddhiratma mahan paraha
buddhiratma mahan
paraha
paraha
ahatah paramavyaktam
mahatah paramavyaktam
paramavyatam
avyaktat purusha paraha
avyaktat
mukta
paraha
parapurusha
purushanna parang kinchat
purushanna param kinchit
akashta sa paragatihi.
akashta
chakashta
sa paragatihi.
paragatihi.
So the methodology being used is to negate anatma, the farthest, the grossest, and the least pervasive, as I, Atma, Brahman cannot be that. And one by one, come closer, come to the one that is more pervasive, come to the one that is more karanam than karyam, and keep rejecting them as I cannot be that. This is the process that is being followed to arrive at that destination which our Ratha Kalpana talks about, Vishnu Padam. To get to that point, that place, from where there is no return. Yad gatvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. And all the time we keep talking of going there, going there. This will be addressed by Bhashyakara later. What do you understand by saying that is the destination I am trying to reach? But first, understand what the destination is. That destination, the final goal, is to know that which is the subtlest, the closest, Pratyagatma, and which is all pervasive, which pervades everything, Tataha, the Tat Padam. And the process is done by slowly taking rid of those which are gross and coming closer and closer and closer. It's very easy to say that which is external to the Sharira can be rejected as being not I. But as you keep coming closer and closer, so in these two verses, we are talking about that which is subtle. Gross is easy to do. Even gross Sharira is, relatively speaking, easy to do. Here we are talking about that which is the subtle component of us. And we are trying to drop them, going to the next level of subtlety, next level of pervasiveness, and deleting them. So he says, Arthaha indriyebhya paraha. Artha, not taking the literal meaning, we've gone through this before, but that which is the Sukshma Bhuta is superior to the individual Sukshma Bhuta of the Indriyas. And this Artha also is subject to Manas. Therefore, Manas is more pervasive. Therefore, Arthebhya cha param manaha. And even the Manas is under the control of, Swami doesn't like the word control, is under the supervision of the buddhi. It is still, we are talking about, even at this stage, we are still talking about the Sukshma Bhuta at an individual level. Now we know that eventually that Atma is Akhanda. It is Ekameva Advitiya Atma. Therefore, it has got to come down to one which will not subject itself to saying multiple Atmas. So at some point in this regression process, the Shruti has to switch from individual level to a samshti level. Now, each one of these you can see as the Atma of the next one. The Artha is the Atma of the Indriyas. Exactly the way we took the example of the fabric, the Angavastram. The fabric is the Atma of this Angavastram or hanky or whatever other material object we make. But that also has an Atma, something which pervades that. The fabric is pervaded by yarn. Therefore, yarn can be talked of as Atma of the fabric. Yarn is pervaded by fibers. Therefore, we can talk of the fibers being the Atma of the yarn. So here, this is gross, it's therefore easy to understand. But when it comes to subtle things, the Artha pervades Indriya. Even the Artha is pervaded by Manas. Manas is supervised, pervaded by Buddhi. Up to this point, we saw, and it's all individual. Therefore, one can look at saying the Buddhi is the Atma for the Manas, which in turn is the Atma for the Indriya, the Artha, which in turn is Atma for the Indriya. We can start at an Indriya. We can start anywhere you want. In fact, the interesting thing is, if we do Vichara, you can start with any word. It doesn't matter whether it is Sthula word or Sukshma word. It will eventually have to come to this one Atma. One Akhanda, indivisible, Ghana Atma. So here the whole thing is done beautifully in a sequence up to this point. Therefore, Bhashyakara, we read last, Manasaha api para sukshmatara mahattara pratyagatma bhuta cha buddhihi. The buddhi is of the manas. Manasa happy, because already before that we said manas shabdavacha. But that manas, which is not the, we are not talking about physical entity. We are talking about that sukshma bhuta. Even that, even more subtle than that. Manasa happy para. Para means sukshmatara. More subtle. Mahattara, where is that? I think we did come down. Manasa heavy pura sukshmatara, correct. Sukshmatara, which also means mahattara. It is superior to. It has supervision over manas. Apipara, sukshmatara, mahattara, and pratyagatma bhuta. It is further interior than the manas. Cha buddhihi. So in our own individual system, whether it's my system or your system or the system of an ant or the system of an elephant, all this holds true. Now we have to look at, we cannot see this as individual Atma. There is no individual Atma. Because Shastra has already told us Atma is Ekameva Advitiya, Akhanda, indivisible. So it has got to switch to one which is one, which is not, cannot be split into individual. And this is something which one has to understand. While the process of understanding starts with Sukshma Artha, from there to Indriya, there I have to look at an individual body and say the Artha, the Indriya, the Manas, the Buddhi, etc. But to take a step back and see that the Atma, if it's Akhanda, it pervades everything. So if there are 10 people in a room, there are not 10 Atmas. There's one Atma which pervades all these 10 people, the space in between them, the time there, everything it pervades. That is what Akhanda means. Therefore, he says this buddhi is there, but now he doesn't stop at buddhi. What is this buddhi? Buddhi shabda vachyam adhyavasayadi arambakam bhuta sukshmam. Again, we are not talking about intellect. We are talking about this bhuta sukshmam. All this is sukshma analysis only. And they have the characteristics of being a vyavasayika, nishchayatmika. Like the manas, earlier we saw, has a sankalpa vikalpa nature. Buddhi has nishchayatmika nature. That comes from the sukshma bhuta. But we are still at the individual level. We are looking at people around all over this place and saying, Atma 1, Atma 2, Atma 3, because every buddhi is an Atma. So we go to the next step. The buddhi of every being, Sura Nara Tiryakadi, the celestials, humans, insects, animals, everything, there is a buddhi. Function is the same. And that commonality of the buddhis, that which makes the buddhi a buddhi, which makes the buddhi of individual being function as nishchayatmika, as vyavasayatmika, adhyavasayatmika. That power, we say that every function has a presiding deity. Like that, he had all the buddhis, all Sura, Nara, Tiryak, covers everything. Has that one commonality in that Sukshma called Hiranyagarbha. This Kathopanishad talks in great detail about Hiranyagarbha. Samashti of this whole thing. All the Sukshma together, the Samashti is called Hiranyagarbha. The Samashti of all the Sthula is called Virat. The whole Jagat, the Virat Rupa that Arjuna sees is that Virat. Vishwadarshana. Everything is included in that. Every physical object is included in that. Every subtle object is included in Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha, also called Prathamaja, Brahmaji. So here Acharya says, Buddhehe Atma. Let's read this. Buddhehe Atma.
Buddhehe
Atma
Sarva Prani Buddhinam.
Sarva Prani Buddhinam
Pratyagatma Bhutatvat.
Pratyagatma Bhutatvat
Atma Mahan.
Atma Mahan.
He calls it Mahan. Leave it there. He calls it Mahan. This Samashti Buddhi subtlety, which is in fact the Buddhi of every prani, everything which has a Buddhi, including trees and animals, and stone doesn't have a Buddhi because there's no Sukshma Sharira in the stone. So anything which has a Sukshma Sharira, that controller of all of that is called Hiranyagarbha, here called Mahan Atma. So Buddhehe Atma Sarva Prani Buddhinam Pratyagatma Bhutatvat, being what inheres every buddhi, the subtle component of every living being, Atma Mahan, being Sattva Mahatvat. It is the what is in charge of every buddhi. Not even a good word. Every buddhi operates because of which. That's why when we have a problem with somebody's buddhi, we can pray for him also. Because there is a central controlling authority, if you want, which can help the buddhi. So, buddhehe atma sarva praninam, sarva prani buddhinam pratyagatma bhutatvat atma mahan. He called it atma. In the same way, I called the fabric the atma of all the products you could get out of that, Angavastram, etc. In just the way we called the yarn the Atma of the fabric. Like that, it's in that sense you say Atma, Mahan Atma. This Prathamaja, Yat Prathamam Jatam,
Yat pratamam jatam.
firstborn, Yat Prathamam Jatam,
Yat pratamam jatam.
Hairanya Garbham,
Niradarbam.
Tattvam,
Tatvam.
Bodha Bodhatmakam,
Bodha bodha. Makam.
Mahanatma Buddhehe,
Mahanatma buddhehe.
Paraha Ityuchyate.
Paraha ityuchyate.
This Hiranya Garbham, the Hiranya Garbha Tattvam, the samashti of all Sukshma is called Hiranya Garbha. And he uses a very interesting word, Bodha Bodhatmakam. Bodha Abodha Atmakam. This would be difficult to understand, but for the Tikakara. Anandagira Tika, he says, Hairanya Garbha Tattvam Ityartha Jnana Kriya Shakti Atmakam. We operate with three types of Shakti. We have to start the entire process Jnana Kriya, Jnana Shakti. Unless we know about an object, there is no further movement. Jnana Shakti. That is also subtle. This leads to this Jnana Shakti, because we have the Jnana Shakti, which is a subtle component, there is a desire that is born. Because I know it is there. If I don't know, that desire will never be born. That desire that is born is called Ichha Shakti. So, unless you know that there is something called an Apple phone 17, you won't desire it. That Ichha Shakti becomes your next, created by the Jnana Shakti. Then that Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti together lead us to Jnana Shakti and Ichha Shakti together lead us to Kriya Shakti. That leads to action. I need to acquire whatever it is that I know and which I have desired. So, Jnana Kriya Shakti Atmakam. Jnana Ichha Kriya Shakti Atmakam. So, Bodha is Jnana Shakti. Abodha is not Ajnanam. Here, otherwise it may be confusing. Not Ajnanam. It is Jnana Shakti refers to the Bodha and Ichha Shakti and Kriya Shakti to the Abodha. All that starts from the Samashti Buddhi. So, Pratyekatma Bhutatvad Atma Mahan Sarva Mahatvad Avyaktat Yat Prathamam Jatam. That which is born of Avyakta. Avyaktat Prathamam Jatam. You look at the Avyakta again a little bit more carefully. Avyaktat Prathamam Jatam Hairanya Garbham. Hairanya Garbha Tattvam. We are talking about subtle things. There is no physical thing that we are looking at. Hairanya Garbha Tattvam Bodha Abodhatmakam Mahanatma Buddhehe Paraha Ityuchyate. What is this which is which is even greater than this Samashti Buddhi, from which the Samashti Buddhi itself is born. Prathamaja. What is Samashti Buddhi born of? What is Hiranyagarbha born of? What is this Prathamaja born of? We have to understand that in this whole understanding, previously there was only Satyam, there was nothing else. Only Satyam was there. From that Satyam, everything was born. Now, if that Satyam is, we've understood correctly, Satyam, nothing can be born. Akarta. From that Satyam, nothing can be born. So we postulate something called Maya. This one transition, if we can understand, further things will become easy. We postulate something. I'm deliberately using the word postulate. Because Maya is not a separate thing. We know that there is only Ekameva Advitiyam. How can Maya be there as a separate thing? There is no second thing. If there is no second thing, is Maya the same as Brahman then? No. This is the first of the many paradoxes we come across. Maya is neither a property of Brahman, because Brahman has no properties. Maya is not separate from Brahman, because there is nothing other than Brahman. My God, you're confusing me. How do you understand Maya then? The first of the Mithya. The whole Jagat eventually we negate after explaining the entire Jagat, all the variations of Jagat. We talk about all the Karanam for the Jagat. And then we reject the entire Karya Karana Prakriya itself. There is no Upadhana Karanam, there is no Vivarta Karanam. But till we understand there is Upadhana Karanam, there is Vivarta Karanam, the only thing we have to understand is that Upadhana Karanam and Vivarta Karanam are both one. There is no separate, like a pot, for a pot, like a clay and a pot maker, as Upadhana Karanam, Vivarta Karanam, there is no such thing. That's all we have to understand at this point in time. And yet the whole Jagat is there. All the varieties in the Jagat are there. I see them, experience them. I feel happiness and disturbance, and I feel everything. I feel pain and I feel joy. Everything is there. Therefore, Mithya. It is there and it is not there. All starts from this Maya. Maya, variously called Prakriti, Avyakta, all kinds of names, Ajnanam. And the whole paradox starts from there. This, for purpose of understanding, he says, this Hiranyagarbha is the Prathamaja, firstborn, from what? Not from Brahman, because Brahman can't produce anything. Maya also can't produce anything, because Maya is non-self-existing. So it is a postulate called Maya in the presence of Brahman, we say, creates, in quotes, the entire Jagat, starting with Hiranyagarbha. And then from the Hiranyagarbha, everything else comes. Once we get that far, rest becomes easy. So he says, Avyaktat yat prathamam jatam Hiranyagarbham tattvam bodha bodhatmakam mahanatma buddhehe paraha. That mahanatma buddhi also, something else is para, and that para is avyakta, avyakrita, prakriti, maya. And best of all, ajnanam. So we brought this whole thing down, not considering the sthula, starting the sukshma, brought it all down to maya. Now, you can't stop there. You can't say that maya is the entire thing, because maya is again non-existing, at least non-self-existing. So how do I then understand it? Well, our search is for that one pratyekatma. How do I then understand this? So in the next verse, Shastra says, Mahataha param avyaktam. Avyaktam is even subtler than Mahat, which is your Samashti Buddhi, Hiranyagarbha. Because Hiranyagarbha born from Mahat. Born from Avyaktam. Avyaktat Purusha Paraha. Purusha. This Avyakta called Maya is also called Prakriti. The Sankhyas say there are two things, there is Prakriti and there is Purusha. Advaita doesn't say that. Advaita say there is only Purusha. Prakriti is imagined if you want. Because I have to understand. Therefore, avyaktat purushaha paraha. That paraha is what he talked of as Vishnu Padam. Then what is then subtler than that? What is then more interior than that? What is then more pervasive than that? Can't be anything. That's a final stop. Purushat na parang kinchit. Nothing is subtler, higher, superior than Purusha. Make that very clear. That's the end of that. There's no further going. All that process that I followed to reach here is the final destination. This is where my Ratha is going. This is where I want to take my Ratha to. I'm sitting in the Ratha and going in this direction, and this is where I want to reach. I want to reach me, this is what I want to understand. Everything else falls by the wayside. Purushat na param kinchit. This is the ultimate. Kashta. Sa kashta. Sa paragatihi. It is the ultimate. It is the end. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to understand. If you understand this one thing, it has, you've got everything. Our Chandogya Upanishad talks of this. Reaching this meaning, understanding this Purusha, there's nothing more to understand. It is as though one knows everything. It is the final destination, paragatihi. We've come all the way, this mahataha param avyaktam. Avyaktam is even better, even superior to Mahat, Hiranyagarbha. And avyaktat purusha para. There's one very important thing you have to understand here. All the way through from artha, to Indriya, to Manas, to Buddhi, to Hiranyagarbha, to Avyakta, they're all part of the same Jagat, Mithya. Suddenly, says Avyakta Purusha Paraha. Then what happens? Purusha is not the same order of reality as Avyakta. Because Avyakta is I can't think of a word. A presumed, an imagined, kalpita. It's like a dream. And from the dream, everything comes. And therefore, we see the dream and we say, this is happening, that's happening to me, my mind is disturbed, I'm fat. All of those panchakoshas, we go about, I'm doing this, I should gain this, I have gained this. All of that comes from there. This is a different order of reality. Avyaktam is avyakritam, called also akasham, called prakriti. This, Bhashyakara will talk more about this. Is the karanam for everything. Very easy to place it there because everything, including Maya, is mithya. Therefore, within mithya, from Maya comes everything else. All the triguna of the Maya creates the entire Jagat, which is all trigunatmika. Sthula, Sukshma, everything. But this understanding, the last step between Maya and Purusha, is not in the same order of reality. Shastra gives us many examples. To understand Brahman and Maya, we have the rope snake example. The snake and the rope are not in the same order of reality. Snake looks real, is real, as long as ajnanam is there. When jnanam is brought out in the form of light, there is no snake. And yet the snake is there when we first encounter it. Different order of reality. And the snake cannot exist without the rope. But all the others that you see, from Maya downwards, is like a clay pot. All the products of clay and their karanam clay, upadhana karanam, are the same order of reality. Whereas a snake and a rope are not, a mirage is not, a different order of reality. And that, therefore, only through those examples, we can begin to understand that there is a possibility that Brahman exists, which is not the same order of reality as all the other things that I'm able to perceive, feel, touch, sense. That Purusha avyaktat paraha. And that now is switched. We made two switches, one from Vyashti to Samashti. We're making a second switch from one order of reality to another order of reality. This order of reality up to Maya is Vyavaharika. And we switch to Paramarthika reality and then we stop. There is nothing more. Sakashta sa paragatihi. If I have not allowed the Ratha because I have a good Sarathi who did not allow the reins to follow, who did not allow my Indriyas to go where they wanted. Then this is where I reach. This is where every human being is trying to reach. This ultimate goal of human being, which is often called moksha. A goal which we hear the words, but we takes time to grasp what it is, what this moksha is. Paragatihi. Is it the Bashyam? Mahataha api
महतः अपि
param sukshmataram
परं सूक्ष्मतरं
pratyagatmabhutam
प्रत्यगात्मभूतं
sarva mahattaram cha
सर्वमहत्तरं च
vyaktam
अव्यक्तं
avyakta maya is mahataha api param, is superior to mahat. Mahat he defined earlier as Hiranyagarbha. It is Sukshmataram, it is Pratyagatma Bhutam, it is Sarva Mahattaram because it is from where Hiranyagarbha is born, is created. Sarvasya Jagataha
सर्वस्य जगतः
Bija Bhutam
बीजभूतं
Avyakrita Nama Rupa Satatvam
अव्याकृतनामरूपसतत्वं
Sarvakarya Karana Shakti Samahara Rupam
सर्वकार्यकारणशक्तिसमाहाररूपं
Avyakrita Akashadi Nama Vachyam
अव्यक्त व्याकृत आकाश
नामवाच्यं
आकाशादि
Avyakrita Akashadi Namavachyam. At various levels, they made very clear that Manas Namavachyam, Shabdavachyam, Buddhi Shabdavachyam, this is Avyakta. It is Sarvasya Jagataha Bija Bhutam. The whole Jagat is Mithya. And where does it come from? That Maya, that Prakriti, which has us nicely fooled into believing that this is all real, this is all Satyam, that everything that I see, sense, touch, perceive, all this is real. It veils our knowledge. You know the true Shakti of Maya. Avarana Shakti covers that knowledge which should have been there. Knowledge of the self should have been there. It covers it, and because it is covered, and because I know that I am, it uses the other Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti, to make everyone imagine what I is. This Maya, and therefore is the entire Bija Bhutam for the entire Jagat. Sarvasya Jagat. Jakataha Bija Bhutam. It is the cause of the entire Jagat. Again, one may argue, Maya is also Jada. Maya has no life of its own, no Shakti of its own. And yet, we say Maya created the Jagat. Maya is not a separate entity. You cannot, there's no physical separation that you can think of between Brahman and Maya. That because of the non-separation, Brahman being Chaitanyam enables Maya to as though create this entire Jagat. Therefore, Maya is called Bijabhutam. It is the seed from which the entire Jagat sprouts. Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha. Again and again, the Jagat seems to appear. Called Avyakrita Nama Rupa Satatvam. All the Satyam of all Nama Rupa in the potential form is Maya. Therefore, you get everything here coming from Maya. It is, like I said, seed form, Bija Bhutam. Explains the thing, Avyakrita Nama Rupa Satatvam Sarva Karya Karana Shakti Samahara Rupam. What a description. Sarvasya Karya Karana Shakti. Then we have, once we have this, very easy. Karana, Karya, Artha, Karya, Karana, Karya, Karana. Whole Jagat is like that. Starting from Maya as the Karanam. And no, Maya can't do anything. Then, okay, you call it Ishvara Rahita, Maya Sahita Ishvara. But Karanam, Karyam. Till we understand that all this is also Mithya. Therefore, Karana Karya is a prakriya that is used, a methodology that is used to understand what is happening in the Jagat. Till we are able to negate that. Then we get closer to begin to understand Ekameva Advitiya Brahman. Even then, Ekameva Advitiya Brahman looks like something I've discovered. Like a new virus I have discovered. No. That Ekameva Advitiya Brahman is I. You have not discovered anything. Avyakrita Nama Rupa Satatvam Sarva Karya Karana Shakti Samahara Rupam. That Avyakta, the Maya, Avyakrita Akashadi Namavacham, also called Akasha. It is non-separate from Brahman. It is not a separate entity. There is nothing other than Brahman. It is as though it is woven within Brahman. Even that is wrong description. There is nothing woven. But how do I understand it? It is as though the fabric is, or the warp and weft of a fabric is the fabric. There is no warp and weft, there is no fabric. This Avyakta is like that. Avyakrita Akashadi Namavachyam Paramatmani Ota Prota Bhavena. Ota Prota is warp and weft. As though this in the Paramatmani Ota Pota Bhavena Samashritam, which is Ashritam in. It is not as if it is a separate entity. It is not as if it is a separate property of Brahman. None of this work. And yet it is the Bija Bhutam. It is the Bija Bhutam. It creates from it the entire Jagat. As though. Like any bija, any seed of a tree produces everything in the tree. The trunk, the bark, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, everything produces of a particular type. And Bhashyakara takes the example of the ficus tree, banyan tree. The seed for that. Vata Kanik, let's read it. Vata Kanikayam.
Vatakarnikayam
In fact, Vata Kanikayam Iva.
Vatakarikayam iva.
Iva
Vata Vriksha Shakti.
Vatavriksha Shakti.
This whole Vata Vriksha, the ficus tree, is a huge tree. And the seed is a small little thing. The entire tree, there's a Shakti within that, both in terms of the Upadhana Karanam and in terms of the Nimitta Karanam, everything is embedded in there. My God, the ficus tree is such a huge tree and the seed is so small. How would you say it's all inside? It is inside. And the whole tree, first the sprouts come and the entire tree grows in time from that one seed. Vata Kanikayam Iva, like the Kanika, the small seed, Vata Vriksha Shakti, it contains the entire, the power to create the entire Vata Vriksha. In many places, Vata Vriksha is compared to the Jagat. We've seen also in Bhagavad Gita, where all the jivas live. All the birds and other things live in the jiva, in that Vata Vriksha. That Vata Vriksha is created from the seed, and here the comparison is that Maya is like the Bija Bhutam, like in the case of Vata Vriksha. You get the entire Jagat. Tasmad Avyaktat.
Tasmad Avyaktat
Tasmad Avyaktat Paraha.
Paraha.
Taraha.
Sukshmataraha.
Sarva Karana Karanatvat.
Sarvakaranatvat.
Pratyagatmatvat.
Pratyagatmatvat.
Pratyagatmatvat cha. Mahanscha.
Mahanscha.
Atayeva Purushaha.
Atayeva Purushaha.
Sarva Puranat.
Sarvapurnat.
Avyaktat api paraha. This avyaktat, which is the karanam for everything in the jagat, as though even for that which is the origin for that on which it is dependent, like the Otaprota, is tasma of that avyaktat paraha. What is subtler, superior, inner, or more pervading, sukshmataraha. Sarva karana karanatvat. We said the entire jagat karanam is Maya. But that karanasya karanam api Purushaha. Actually, it is not something which is true. Purusha doesn't create anything. But we have to explain this jagat. Therefore, we say Purusha created Sarva Karana Karanatvat. Without the Purusha, there is no Maya. Therefore, Sarva Karana Karanatvat and Pratyagatmacha, that which is the Karanam for Maya, that which on which Maya depends, that which is therefore the inner is even inner compared to Maya, which is superior, Mahancha. That Purushaha, Atayeva Purushaha, that is the Purusha. That is the Purusha. So, Avyaktat Purusha Paraha. We've come step by step to this Purusha. What is this Purusha? He says Sarva Purana. Purusha is Sarva Purana. That which is in everything. That which is Akhanda. Without which there is no Jagat, without there is no Maya, without this there is nothing that is there. So Sarva Purana, Purusha. You know where several meanings we've seen of the word Purusha. Purayati iti Purusha. And also that which inheres in everything. Also Purusha. That Purusha, where Bhagavan says, everything is in me and I'm in everything. Sarva bhutastam atmanam, sarva bhutani cha atmani. That Atma. Both are there. That Purusha, Purayati. Pure Vasati is also Purusha. Purusha is the Sharira. Pura is the Sharira. That Purusha, also called in the 13th chapter, Kshetrajna. That Purusha is Mahan, is Pratyagatma, is the Karanam, is the Sukshmataram. In fact, it is Sukshmatamam. There is nothing Sukshma, more Sukshma than that. There is only Purusha, because that is Sakashta Sa Paragatihi. That which is the ultimate point where one is trying to reach, one is trying to understand. Having eliminated, rejected all other things on the way as being not as superior, as inner, as sukshma, to reach that. And this cannot be done unless the whole system of the Ratha works. The Rathin is very clear about where he wants to go. The Sarathi, Ratha Sarathi, understands the instructions very clearly, has control, total control over the manas and the indriyas, and therefore can take the indriyas where they need to go. Unless all of these work, the Ratha will go astray. There is nowhere else to go. Even if you go astray, eventually every human being has to find a way back in here. There is no choice. We will continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashyate.
Om
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.